Well, my next guest is one of the world's leading urban warfare experts, Major John Spencer. He is chair of urban warfare studies with the Madison Policy Forum. He's also author of Understanding Urban Warfare. It's good to have you with us. Now that Kherson is in the hands of the Ukrainian army, could this be a turning point in this war?
Absolutely. I think it's another major turning point, and there's been a few. But a symbolic, strategic, and an important victory for Ukraine today.
And remind us, for our viewers, why is Kherson so strategically important?
So sure. I mean, like the broadcast said, it's the only regional capital city that Russia was able to occupy, and occupied this one early in the war. But despite knowing for months and weeks leading up to this that it was falling, and despite rushing their best troops they had left to the Kherson region so that it wouldn't fall, they still lost it. So I think that's a very significant message to what the capability of the Russian military in Ukraine is, given the Western supplies keep flowing to Ukraine. War is about a battle of wills. Ukraine is not going to run out of the will to fight. Russia is.
Have you been surprised by how quickly it seemed that Russia lost control of Kherson?
No, not surprised at all. We've been watching, as an urban warfare specialist, the battle very closely as Ukraine isolated the troops on the western side of the Dnieper, a major obstacle for a long time, cutting them off from resupply, hitting ammunition depots with long-range fires. I'm surprised that the Russians left themselves this exposed for this long. And I don't believe that they successfully withdrew 30,000 while they're gone. I don't think that many were left. They lost a lot of soldiers in this withdrawal, and they again abandoned more equipment. So they're holding strong to their position as the #1 supplier of weapons to Ukraine.
Our correspondent in Ukraine told me this evening that there are reports that there may be maybe as many as 10,000 Russian soldiers who were left behind. And let me ask you then, what should Ukrainian soldiers, what should they be expecting? I mean, should they be prepared to find hostile Russian forces there, or are they going to find hungry and cold men?
Yeah, so I think you're going to find a combination of it all. Ukrainians have to move forward, and they've already put this out in messaging today, that they're going to approach it very cautiously because of reports of Russian soldiers donning civilian equipment and staying behind. Or, of course, we've seen what happens to Russian-occupied areas, booby trapping, kids' toys, all the horrors. So while this is a great day and it will be celebrated by Ukraine, they're moving forward very cautiously. But I think they're going to find a little bit of everything, to include more surrendering of Russian soldiers.
Well, when you look at this, can you find a strategy then that the Russian military is following, or what can you imagine the next step is going to be? I mean, do they have options now that they have withdrawn?
So it's very interesting on what they might do. Their strategy is a strategy of desperation. I mean, honestly, once you lose the momentum in war, many of the strategy here was to hold what they could and hope for a slowing down of the war in the winter, and then maybe somehow try to offer a position of negotiation. But they've never been able to reestablish their lines. They're that low on quality troops and supplies. Mm-hmm. They're turning to North Korea, they're turning to Iran. They're forcing soldiers with no training into the fight. I mean, where would they try to hold now? Is it Zaporizhia, Mykolaiv? Who knows? But I think it should send a signal to everybody around the world they're desperate, and the Ukrainians are winning.
If this were to become a war where we see more urban fighting, what kind of condition are Russian troops in? I mean, because, we've heard that, tens of thousands of reservists have been called up and that they're being trained right now. Is it realistic, though, to think that Russia has the capability and capacity to train them to be effective urban warriors, if you will? Because we know that the Ukrainian military has been planning for that eventuality.
Oh, not at all. Especially so, they did this in like waves. Of course, they captured as many Russian citizens as possible and rushed them to areas in the east and in the south with no training. But then they did send some to what was left of their training base. But they're really desperate even there because they sent many of their trainers into Russia. But Russia has never been on my radar as a proficient urban warfare force. That takes a lot of training, a lot of discipline, cohesive, well-led formations. The Russians like to fight in mass using artillery in front of them, the way they've organized themselves. I mean, they're still dangerous. I'm not trying to send a picture that there's nothing left of them. Mass does have a quality, and that's what they're hoping for. And, reports of over 100,000 dead, probably 300,000 wounded, is when will they have had enough?
About 4 weeks ago, the Russian president said in public that the city of Kherson, that region, would be a part of Russia forever. That was just 4 weeks ago. And this week, we saw the new commander of the Russian operation in Ukraine. He went on state television. He was the one who announced that Russian troops are withdrawing. We noticed that Vladimir Putin is nowhere to be found when news of a defeat or a setback has to be announced. What does this do to the morale of his soldiers?
100%. It lowers it, although I don't know how much lower it could go. You need, even small victories, you need cohesion within your group. You need messages from your leadership to keep morale high, and especially with winter coming. But this is a significant blow to the Russian forces, especially in the south, who are in this areas. Morale, motivation, willingness to fight for Putin. 100% agree. The Russian military has had a revolving door of commanders, and I personally don't think this new one who just got in a few weeks ago will last much longer.
Major John Spencer, we appreciate your time and your valuable insights tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.